Hello, everybody. Welcome to this championship week edition of A Good Football Show, Fantasy Kickoff, served by Applebee's. I am Patrick Daugherty, joined as always by John Daigle, Denny Carter, Kyle Dvorchak. We're going to get into all your lineup questions. We're going to tackle all the week's biggest news. We're going to wish you thoughts and prayers as you try to take home fantasy trophies. And we're going to try to enjoy one of the 2 weeks of regular season football we've got left. Kyle, got a strange situation, as has become the case every week with the Bucs wide receivers. We have Antonio Brown, who was questionable all week. Now he's active. We have Mike Evans, who is active, but highly, highly questionable, perhaps in a limited capacity. Two really huge names for week 17, guys that would normally just be set and forget. Can you set and forget Antonio Brown and Mike Evans today?
Mike Evans feels much less set and forget. Antonio Brown, I would say so, because he did pop up. I believe it was probably an injury he suffered on Wednesday, because he didn't exit the previous week with the injury. So I think by all reports, it was a midweek injury that did seem to set him back a little bit. And they even said that or at least I think it was Schefter said, the team was actually kind of doubtful that he would play this week. Looked good in Saturday's practice. And supposedly he also looks good in warmups, making catches in the back of the end zone, moving around, no problem. Mike Evans, I do suspect, is fully limited in this game, plays maybe half the snaps. He's still probably on the high leverage snaps. You see them at the 5-yard line. Mike Evans could still be in there for a fade. So a wide receiver 3 is probably where I'm going to end up ranking him. I do think, though, they get up 21, which seems not that hard to do against the Jets. They get up 21 in the third quarter. That might be the end of Evans' day. Antonio Brown, I'm very comfortable with ranking as wide receiver 1.
The everything funnel New York Jets. I ranked him as a barely there wide receiver 3, Mike Evans. But then just when you're talking, why would they even have him active? If he was not 100% healthy, why would they risk it? And I guess maybe it's just to get some reps in for the postseason, because it wouldn't make a lot of sense. But every credible reporter is saying snap count, and it certainly makes sense in theory. So I think that's how you take those reports at face value, basically. Denny, kind of a strange situation in the Eagles' backfield where Jordan Howard was questionable all week with a stinger. It was always a mysterious injury. We never quite know what a team even means by a stinger. He's out there, though. Miles Sanders is not out there. It's another good matchup for the Eagles and the football team, a football team known as the football team, coming off the worst performance by any team in the NFL all season. How do you prioritize these Eagles running backs? We've had this conversation several times this week, but I feel like the answer could be different today than it was on Tuesday or Wednesday.
Yes, they are playing against the team that plays football. Last week when Miles Sanders went out with that injury, they really, Boston Scott and Jordan Howard split work down the middle. You're talking about 12 carries for Scott, 9 for Howard. Of course, Howard left the game with that stinger injury. Like you mentioned, they both ran 10 pass routes in that game. They both saw 3 targets. So I think it's hard to say, one guy is much better than the other. I would guess the way that they've used Howard this season and over his 35 years in Philadelphia, I'm guessing he would have the edge on, the edge at the goal line, which is obviously
the
important
NBC
here.
Sports edge at the goal line.
Exactly. I'm sorry. I failed to.
I don't know why I just made that joke.
Now it's the NBC Sports Edge powered by Roto World at the goal line.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Well,
I picked this week
anyway,
in this conversation to make the joke.
I like Boston Scott to see more touches. I like Howard's touchdown upside more. If that helps anybody, you're welcome.
That's how I've been framing it all week, Denny, because I think that is just what makes the most sense. And I guess if you just want to bank touches, bank a floor. I guess they both have a floor. Ceiling slightly better with Boston Scott. The floor is pretty solid with both in this really good matchup, and I think you laid it out perfectly there. Daigle, the 49ers, you want to talk about a lot going on here. We got the backup quarterback in Trey Lance, who's a totally different style than Jimmy Garoppolo. We have Elijah Mitchell coming back, who was always a bell cow anytime he was active. Now the reports and the coach speak is that he kind of will be on a snap count. It's not going to be a 25-touch game for Elijah Mitchell against this really bad Texans run defense. And how do you parse all this out? Is it all systems go for Trey Lance and DFS? And how far ahead is Elijah Mitchell of Jeff Wilson in the rankings?
So basically just answer everything about
Yeah.
the 49ers offense. Just unlock the keys.
Daigle, instead of the DFS manifesto, just give us the winning lineup. And
Just give us the 49ers manifesto. I mean, Deebo Samuel, too. Now he's got to run first quarterback. Yeah, anyway, just lay the 49ers on us.
Trey Lance and DFS and redraft is a very easy start. For instance, I'm in a championship league, just in a championship round in a home league on ESPN, and I am benching Joe Burrow today for Trey Lance because Trey Lance is just the better start. When you look back at that lone start he had for Jimmy Garoppolo, but think about all the things he had against him. Did not throw a touchdown, did not run for a touchdown. George Kittle did not play. Brandon Ayuk was in the doghouse, 70% of snaps, ineffective player. And it was against, at the time with J.J. Watt, the Cardinals pass defense, which was the number one pass defense in the league. And all of that, he still scored 15 fantasy points as the QB 16 overall. Now imagine if things even go median outcome. Let's not even say ceiling, because ceiling is QB 1 overall in the entire week. Let's say median outcome, it's QB 8 or 9. He's just an awesome, easy play in literally the entirely polar opposite spot than he was in that last start. So I'm locking him everywhere. For Elijah Mitchell, we've seen him come back from injury. Recall the last time he did this, he got 32 touches overall. They didn't care about his injury. And I know they have said that he's going to be limited, or at least they'll try and limit it upon his return. I don't expect targets. We never get targets and catches out of him or Jeff Wilson, since that's JaMychal Hasty's role. But I genuinely still do think we get at least 15 carries out of Elijah Mitchell. Again, an amazing spot since the Texans have allowed the most carries of 10-plus yards this year. So I wouldn't say with certainty he is a fringe RB1 like we usually put him in this spot. If he were 100%, a little more risk involved with that injury, still a confident RB2, low-end RB2. I'm sure we'll get some start sits and create a line as we move along here in the show. And the receivers, I expect Lance to bring along at least Debo with him and Kittle. Those are two players you're not going to bench anyway, so it doesn't matter. Also, with Debo, you can backdoor fantasy points with 5 to 8 carries against a, as we already said, poor rushing defense. So not worried about Debo at all, no matter how many targets or how few targets he may receive. And Brandon Ayuk, you would usually play him anyways for his elite usage on the field and running routes. I think it's the same thing. The floor is probably lower, honestly, maybe even the ceiling, but there's nothing to suggest that suddenly in this much better spot for Lance, that there's just going to be like significantly less passing volume. So like, I just genuinely think we see the same offense we've seen with Garoppolo the past month, except like the ceiling is now higher.
Daigle, our private chat, by the way, we've been a kind of a flutter taking you to task for bragging about making a championship.
It's like, I'm just casually in a few championships. I don't know if you've ever heard of them. I don't think anyone's really playing this week, but me.
It's a microaggression.
More importantly, we are in 28th place in the FFPC main event in Vegas, 28th overall. And number 2 pays out $100K. Can't get to 1 for a $500K. Go Bills. The threesome there have the best redraft team you could have possibly put together, including Cooper Kupp and Jonathan Taylor. And that's just not to mention everyone else. But we can get to number 2 today. So we need to run hot today.
Thoughts and prayers. I'm in first in my main league, but it's a points-only league, and I'm really sweating and just might be secretly crying. We'll begin with another one we could have talked about at the beginning, Kyle. Daniel, who joins us every week, the Chase Edmonds line and the Darrell Williams line, really. So fascinating question on its face, but also as like the subtext of, is James Conner going to play today? You were all over that this morning. What are your thoughts on James Conner playing, Kyle, and who would you play in this situation?
Yeah, we have mixed reports. We have Ed Warner, I believe ESPN, if I remember correctly, saying that the team was pessimistic. NFL Network's Ian Rappaport saying the team was optimistic. And his practice didn't, I don't think he practiced almost at all this week. So the practice reports would also agree pessimistic. I would still say, I'm assuming I am heading forward. I have him ranked. I have him not ranked as if he's out, obviously. But we know for sure Clyde Edwards-Helaire is out. I think the roles will actually be very similar between Chase Edmonds and Darrell Williams. Maybe you give up like a 10% reduction in role by going to Darrell, but I just don't see, if we think the two players are very similar, the Chiefs have a higher implied team total. Darrell, just like Edmonds, was really involved as a pass catcher when he was the RB1 for his team. I would just bank a very similar role in probably a better spot with Darrell than risk James Conner being a surprise active. So if you have James Conner, I definitely would be playing as if he's not playing, even as far as like starting your lesser 1 p.m. guys over him. But in this spot, I think the players are so similar that I would just take what we know is a for sure quantity in Darrell Williams and not risk it with Chase Edmonds. Because if James Conner is out, then Chase Edmonds becomes Darrell Williams essentially.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like in a vacuum, I'd prefer to play Chase Edmonds, but
Me
you're
too.
absolutely right. In this situation, just hedge and go with Darrell Williams because there's so little difference. Denny Jack, he's got two interesting players. Rashad Penny, who's had 2 top 10 finishes in the past 3 weeks, or Amon-Ra St. Brown, who actually overcame the Tim Boyle start last week. He had 8 catches, but that's kind of like, can we hit on 17 again with Amon-Ra getting 8 more catches from a Tim Boyle-led Lions offense?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to sit St. Brown with the kind of volume he's seeing. We mentioned on the Tuesday show, it's like elite volume among like the Justin Jefferson crowd of receivers for St. Brown, something I didn't think I would say this season. But anyway, I do think it's Penny. Just based on touches, based on the fact that the Lions have been low key okay against the pass. The Seahawks have the 6th worst drop back EPA since Russell Wilson's premature return from that finger injury. So I think that they'll keep it on the ground the way Pete Carroll likes. I think Penny has a ton of upside in this one.
Yeah, you go, Diggle.
Well, did Josh Reynolds and Brock Wright make it off the COVID list, or are they still on it as well? Because that leaves significantly more targets for Amon-Ra St. Brown as well. The only issue is that game is projected to be like a wind and rain heavy game,
yes.
which bodes much better for Rashad Penny. So much safer.
And Josh Reynolds remained on the COVID list, by the way. So
yeah, you were right, Diggle. Both of them. I was on news yesterday and today, and I don't remember it happening, which means it didn't happen.
That's where you know where we're at, by the way. Even in being on news on Saturday, you just don't know anymore.
It's the problem because you're asking about the absence of news, and I have to remember things that did not exist. I'm like, oh yeah, that thing didn't happen. So yeah. But you are correct in pointing out that neither of them were activated.
The weather, though, is worse.
Yeah, and it's perfect for Pete Carroll giving Penny 30 carries and DeAndre Swift getting 20 and Jamal Williams getting 15, and then Craig Reynolds gets 7.
Pete Carroll going out in a blaze of snow game glory, then rain game glory. He's going to really, really like that. Daigle, Joe, I have these 3 guys ranked all in a row: Antonio Brown, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase. I believe I have Higgins, Brown, Chase. How in the world do you decide here? And who should Joe be starting out of this big 3?
It's going to come down to your risk tolerance for Antonio Brown. We have it on good authority that Antonio Brown is fine. They are somewhat worried that a re-aggravation could happen because, like, on Friday, it truly was a game time call. And then for the Bucks practice on Saturday, Antonio Brown was just fine, which then lent the team to saying, okay, he's good to go. He's going to play. There's also the narrative about him reaching $330,000 bonus for getting 11 catches. And there are 2 more weeks left, but the Bucs could coast in week 18. So this is kind of like their incentive Super Bowl. And everyone says, well, that's just a narrative. Like, it doesn't matter. But then you look to week 17 last year, and Antonio Brown, who, remember, lives with Brady, needed 11 catches to get a $250,000 incentive. And Brady in week 17 gave him 15 targets for 11 catches, literally made sure he could pay rent, and he probably still didn't pay the rent. So I still think there is risk involved, but I still think Antonio Brown, just like an amazing, amazing high floor, high ceiling option. I would play him personally over T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. But if you want to play it safer, because re-aggravation it can happen. If you want to play it safer, I think Higgins is your best option. It's up to you.
I had him ahead of both of them until this morning. I moved Higgins just ahead of Brown and kept him ahead of Jamar Chase, but it's so close. And yeah, when you've won 7 Super Bowls, by the way, you've got bigger things to play for, like getting your wide receiver of dubious personal integrity his bonus. Kyle here. We got, first off, Happy New Year only to me. Thank you, Steve. I really, really, really love that. And
God,
Kyle, you talked
I'm not
about
answering it. I won't.
you talked about Chase Edmonds and you talked about Darrell Williams. Let's throw Damien Harris into the mix. Is it still the same answer for you?
I think I would actually go Damien Harris here. I'm not sure how much Ramondre we see coming off the COVID list. We've seen this time and time again. Players come off. Tyler Lockett and Tyreek Hill both talked about how they physically just weren't ready to come back, but they were technically cleared, played, and both at least Tyreek Hill and then Alexander Madison previously both played season lows in terms of snaps. Madison obviously with the caveat of his games he started. So players coming off the COVID list, a little suspicious. Damien Harris in a massive favorite spot against a truly awful Jaguars team. I think it's a perfect spot for him to maybe not repeat 3 touchdowns last week, but at least get on the board once, if not twice. So I just think the Pats offense is overall pretty underrated. If you've got Jacoby Myers, start him. If you got Harris, start him. Same with Hunter Henry. And then for me, if you if you're looking to the second option, again, Darrell over Chase.
By the way, Steve reminded me, I forgot to say Happy New Year. Happy New Year to our audience. Thank you so much for joining us today as we ring in 2022. And Denny, Gary, we've already asked you now about the Eagles backfield. Let's throw Cordarrelle Patterson in the mix. Let's establish maybe the Boston Scott line and just take stock of where Cordarrelle Patterson is, because this is the first week I did a big rankings hedge for Cordarrelle. I've got him down like that RB2-3 borderline after kind of giving him high-end RB2 benefit of the doubt for a few weeks.
Right.
That spread against the Bills, I felt like we finally, in just the recent lack of production, felt like we finally had to fade Cordarrelle. But is it fading him enough to start Boston Scott over him?
That's a tough one because, besides last week when Patterson only saw 7 carries, he had seen double-digit carries in 4 straight games. Of course, the target upside has vanished, and that's been very frustrating. So I do think you're playing. I think you're playing Patterson here, if only because honestly, the Falcons, if there is rational coaching, and I don't know if we can bank on that with Arthur Smith, but the Falcons need to get the ball out quickly. They need to be as conservative as possible, because if they have to drop back 50 times against this Buffalo pass rush, it's going to be a nightmare for Matt Ryan. I would think that CPAT would be part of that equation. So I would lean CPAT here, but man, it's pretty close.
It is really close to my rankings too, but I also leaned CPAT. So Denny's off to a really good start in the new year with the lawyers. They think you've turned a new leaf.
I have.
Person.
I have.
And yeah, they're just very, very happy. And they're so pleased with your personal growth. Dylan Lasagna Daigle, he wants, so I think I know the, well, I don't know if I know the answer. Pick one, Eagles running back or Rashad Bateman, and then maybe just take a quick second to break down how you view the Ravens passing game outlook with Tyler Huntley returning today.
Well, we know that Tyler Huntley has locked on to Mark Andrews for 27 of 32 targets when he's been under center this year. So we know exactly where he's going to go to the ball with. Rashad Bateman will still likely lead their receivers and routes run as he's done in the last 2 games, but his ceiling is still highly in question. So I don't know if I technically trust Bateman despite the usage. So honestly, I think I'd take the chance on a favorable game script. We expect the Eagles to beat Washington handedly. And so thus I would probably just go, I still think it's Jordan Howard. I know he's banged up, but the fact that he was still cleared to play in this one, as he at least has 2 touchdown upside, he has a full, you may be worried about the floor because if he doesn't get there, it's still probably 50 yards, 60 yards here. But if you ask me who's the likeliest to score out of this bunch, I think that's honestly who it is.
And that makes sense. I have ranked Scott higher, but I could definitely see if you just want the one attribute you want to cling to in this backfield is Jordan Howard's touchdown odds. That makes a lot of sense. Kyle T-Ray on YouTube, he needs to sit one. He's got quite a gaggle of RB2s here, of really good RB2s. I think maybe I spy someone who I would sit, but I don't know what you're going to say. Who would you sit for T-Ray?
This is tough. I'm not sitting Sony Michel. Saw, I believe, 28 touches last week. Solid implied team total. Favorites against a backup quarterback. A good one, admittedly. Rashad Penny plays the most run-upon defense in the NFL, and he's been electric in the past few games, as you noted, 2 RB1 games. I think we're just sitting Elijah Mitchell out of the risk profile, not because I think he's actually any worse than any of these players. And the funny thing is, Alvin Kamara is probably the next player I would have considered, because I think he plays on the weakest offense of this bunch. Yeah, he easily plays in the weakest offense of this bunch. But because of the risk profile, I guess I will sit Elijah Mitchell. Also, Mark Ingram not expected to play. Maybe that just boosts Tony Jones, but it also could help Alvin Kamara inch closer to a 20 carry game. So I will say you are benching Elijah Mitchell. These are I might have all these guys ranked as RB1s. If not, they're top 15. But one of them is probably the most likely to go out and get 10 carries and then sit for the second half or something like that. And that's Elijah Mitchell. So they're all really good options. One is just riskier than the rest.
Very bold of you to assume that Tony Jones exists, Kyle, because we haven't really seen much evidence that Tony Jones Jr. actually exists. Denny, Andrew on YouTube, Sonny Michel or Antonio Brown, do you bank the RB touches or do you bank the sky high upside with Antonio Brown?
Yeah, it's a terrible matchup on paper for Sonny Michel against a really tough Ravens defense, rush defense that can be passed upon pretty easily. But I'll bank on those running back touches and what should be pretty good game script. Also, Michel's been involved in the pass game. He's run a good number of routes. Obviously, Akers not playing today. Darrell Henderson's on IR. it's going to be another 90% snap share for Michelle. Not that Brown is a bad play, but I'll go Michelle.
I think that makes sense. And what's going to make sense is what Lawrence Jackson says on Last Minute Pickups. He's been amazing for us all year, makes us laugh every week. So Lawrence, talking about some Last Minute Pickups you can make for week 17.
Yes, sir. It's about that time, baby. It's finna go down. Fantasy Football Championship weekend. For those who still with us, we got to go get this thing. We got injuries. We got that Rona. So you got to stay locked in and ready to see who you could pick up. A couple of unlikely starts that might help you in week 17. Got the Saints defense at home versus them Carolina Panthers who don't know what the hell they doing at quarterback. And that game got an over-under of only 38. Got the Bears at home versus them booty-ass Giants who also don't know what the hell they doing at quarterback with another over-under 38. Get the Saints and the Bears defense in your lineup. On fire, Chiefs running back Darrell Williams. Eagles running backs Boston Scott and or Jordan Howard, who's questionable. Some of y'all might not like this one here, but I do, so I don't give a damn. Trey Lance versus them Texans. If you in a true bind in week 17 at the QB position, go on, get them in. Rushing upside is there. Kittle, Debo, the weapons is there. And the talent is there. Let's go, Rook. Yeah.
Truly, I think he speaks for all of us on Trey Lance. Let's go, Trey Lance, this totally nuclear QB1 overall. And we're all thinking about you, Trey.
We got a bleep. I'm jealous. Just the ranks went all season without a bleep. I got to get one in there.
You're not high T enough. You need
no,
to.
I'm not. I do need to take my T pills. Yeah.
More testosterone if you want to get bleeped any. So yeah, thanks for Lawrence. Seriously makes me legit laugh out loud. I mean, you might know that better as LOL, but I laugh out loud every single week at something Lawrence says. So it's been a pleasure having him on the show all year. Daigle, it's been a while. Darnell Mooney, Jay Jeff, Devontae Parker, or Russell Gage in PPR for Paul on YouTube.
So I do genuinely think there are situations where I would bench Justin Jefferson, like taking a high touch running back like a David Montgomery or Ronald Jones in a really good spot today. Just given the fact that Sean Mannion, it's not the fact that he's bad at football. His last started 2019, less than 5 yards per attempt, 2 picks. It was a week 17 game, so 3 years. He's only started 3 career games anyhow. But it's just the fact that Mannion also now, I forgot what point I was trying to get there.
Is still bad?
Everything runs together. He is still bad, yeah. But no, I would take a high-touch running back over Justin Jefferson. But in this case, with all of these guys, I'm taking Justin Jefferson. I will let the talent win out over a wide receiver 3 or 4. But yeah, if you do have like a RB2, I would start them over Justin Jefferson this week.
We will not tolerate any benching Justin Jefferson talk because some of us, our entire seasons are riding on Justin Jefferson.
And when if and when I remember my point about Justin Jefferson, I will get back to it.
It's week 17.
Week 17.
It might be a new year for some of you folks, but for us, it's the longest year.
It's the longest season.
It's almost over though. Kyle Charlo on YouTube. He needs a running back, or he or she needs a running back, needs a wide receiver in half PPR. Saquon or Boston Scott, DJ Moore, MVS. Basically, a lot of people that, by the letter of the law, you can start, but you kind of want to bench all of them. So give us an RB, give us a wide receiver.
Yeah, I believe it was Daigle who said that we still expect to see Jordan Howard getting the goal line work. He was actually really efficient too. He averaged like 14 carries for, I think, 70 yards in 3 games without Miles Sanders. I think he probably plays a more 1A role than, someone coming off what they call a stinger. I don't know. We also have it listed as a neck injury. So whatever it was, I think he plays a pretty significant role. For that reason, I will take the number 1 running back on a considerably worse offense than Saquon Barkley over the number 2 for a better, admittedly, offense. And I'm making the same decision for DJ Moore. DJ Moore's volume has just been hyper elite. Has that converted to a ton of explosive games? I don't know. Let's not look too deep into it because I buy the volume. I believe that with Sam Darnold, the offense, I'm not sure if it will be, quote, better, but it will pass more, which is really what we want for DJ Moore. So Barkley, DJ Moore.
You just made me scared about benching DJ Moore in a league where I've been trying to work up the courage to do it for months. And I finally did it today. And it is so true. Like you said, it might finally come back around. Denny, Todd, Joe Burrow, Dak Prescott. 2 guys that are very close in the rankings. Joe Burrow coming off literally historic performance against a really, really good pass defense. Or Dak, who had been struggling in fantasy, not real life, for weeks, who went nuclear last week. Who should Todd be starting?
Well, I mentioned on the Thursday show that I don't think we're going to see that, foot on the gas type approach that Zach Taylor employed against the Ravens last week that generated 500 plus yards and 4 touchdowns for Joe Burrow. I think we're going to see a more conservative approach, probably more Joe Mixon centric game plan. This is a long way of me saying I like Dak Prescott with a really solid total for the Cowboys. No weather in Dallas, so let's go Prescott here.
I think Dak is the play. They're close, but I agree with Mr. Dennis, who again is just killing it in this new year. The lawyers, I mean, we might actually send the lawyers home we've never done that on a Sunday before.
That's amazing.
We might actually send the lawyers home on this Sunday. Daigle Laku needs a ceiling play out of Rex Burkhead, Dare Gunbowale, Tony Pollard, or Chase Claypool in a half PPR league. I mean, just ceiling is a relative concept with these players, but he needs
Correct.
a ceiling play.
It would be Chase Claypool. That's the only one really with 2 or 3 touchdown upside. I understand Burkhead got there last week, but also it was a career high in rushing yards. Different situations, and San Francisco's run defense has still been incredible. Even like when 49ers think back a couple weeks ago when they tried to run on them, they just couldn't. And so overall, yeah, I would just take Claypool and then hope he gets 70+% of the snaps, doesn't get benched at any point, and then go from there.
And Ben Roethlisberger, his final home game, he's gonna try to make it about Ben. Like it's gonna be Ben Roethlisberger time, which means 60 attempts. And
he is retiring. Just ask him.
Yeah, he's done the worst job ever at hiding the fact that he's retiring.
Well, remember, like Dwayne Wade had his own coronation at every game. So, like Dwayne Wade was still the absolute worst retiring, but Roethlisberger's definitely second worst retiring.
You're not a baseball fan. When a baseball player announces before the season they retire, they get literally 45 different ceremonies during the season. So I guess maybe Ben deserves.
That was who was the Reds' first baseman long time?
Currently it's Joey Votto, so probably not.
Didn't he retire though?
No, Joey Votto, he is not retired. He's still the OBP king
Okay,
of the National League Central.
Cal Ripken's retirement thing went on for 3.5 years.
Yeah,
I can attest to that.
It did. Kyle Brad Northcutt joins us every week. He plays a lot of tight end premium. He needs 2 flex out of Dawson Knox, Tony Pollard, Jarrett Patterson, or Deontay Foreman. I'm surprised we haven't talked about Jarrett Patterson this week, who could be a real X factor for Week 17.
Yeah, to me with Patterson, the concern is that he plays for Washington, and I don't know if you've watched the Washington game like the past 10 days, but they're god awful. They're just not good. They have no clue what they're doing. There was reports. They literally had conflicting reports on who was playing at quarterback for them, where I believe Rivera said early in the week that they planned, Kyle Allen would probably see the field, and then their offensive coordinator was like, no, Taylor Heineke, all the snaps. That is the telltale sign of a team in disarray. I am not playing Jared Patterson anywhere I can avoid to do so. He's probably good for 12 to 15 carries, and I think Jonathan Williams probably plays more of that passing downs role. But on this offense, what is that even worth? So I will go with Dawson Knox and Deontay Foreman. Tony Pollard competitive with Deontay Foreman. Jared Patterson was the easy one to rule out.
There you go. Yeah, it's Jared Patterson. Man, Jonathan Williams, man. If Jonathan Williams actually happens, I mean, it'd just be the most Week 17 thing ever. But I think you're right that it's gonna kind of happen. Denny, we've talked a lot about Trey Lance all week. Talked less about Tyler Huntley, who within the past 2 or 3 weeks had a QB1 overall finish. Who should Angelo play, Tyler Huntley or Trey Lance?
I'm going Lance here for many of the same reasons that Daigle mentioned earlier. It's just a completely different environment for Trey Lance stepping in to this start compared to his week 5 start against the Cardinals. And even then, he was 1 inch away from having a really nice game, diving into the end zone. Of course, he got stuffed. Anyway, Tyler Huntley's performance against Green Bay a couple weeks ago was incredible. I'm not saying it's not, but the Packers have been kind of bad on defense over the second half of the season. The Rams, I think, are a much tougher test. That sort of point chasing, he's going to get rushing. His rushing upside is there. I don't know if he's going to be able to rip the Rams through the air the way he did the Packers. I like Lance a little more.
So you're saying the Packers defense is going to cost them the Super Bowl for 12th straight season in a row?
I mean, per EPA, they are very bad actually recently.
Daigle, we've already got 1 or 2 manifestos from you today. We are continuing with our manifesto on demand commands, and give us the DFS lay of the land for Week 17.
It's a really tough week on DraftKings in particular. Pricing is very, very tight, even though we are in the end of the year, and there should be more options. But people look at this slate and say 14 games, right? So like some players go overlooked, but really the slate doesn't include 14 games. It's really about 6 offenses. That's it. And so we kind of know what everyone's going to do. Having said that, I don't even oppose going Trey Lance in whatever tournament. Small field, large field, I think it's just fine because there are so many ways to get unique around him, especially like I said on DraftKings, where you kind of need that salary savings. Like even Dak being tremendously valuable at 6,700, like you can basically save 2K in a week. We need it with Trey Lance. And then getting unique after that with, let's say, a Stephon Diggs. Like the Bills team total is over 30 now, and it's one of the ones that actually rose at the end of the week. So less skepticism for those because that's professional steam as opposed to totals that rose at the beginning of the week and could have been like probably professional steam, but could have been for a lot of reasons, like Chiefs Bengals, which I still kind of have my doubts on the over on, and then Cardinals Cowboys, which could blow up, but is also very volatile because we've seen these offenses be bad recently, like within the last month. And so like Lance and then adding like Stephon Diggs to your Gabriel Davis and Devin Singletary to get touchdown equity. Lance, and then rather than Antonio Brown, you can go Ronald Jones and Rob Gronkowski to get touchdown equity. You can go Lance with Deebo Samuel because no one's going to play Deebo Samuel, even though that's the logical bring back with him. Also bringing along like a Brandon Cooks with Deebo Samuel is a skinny game stack. Or, you can take also the running back situation, Trey Lance and Elijah Mitchell, who I think is an awesome play on DraftKings. But more importantly, you can take Elijah Mitchell to the afternoon because that's a late swap situation. And you can actually late swap him with Chase Edmonds or vice versa as we wait the James Conner news for sure in the afternoon. So I like at least taking Edmonds, Mitchell's late swaps to the afternoon, seeing what happens. But overall, like we know Stephon Diggs is going to be single digits. We know Alvin Kamara is going to be single digits, even without Mark Ingram. He just lost. No one's seeing what's happening right now. And so like he's an awesome play. Austin Eckler single digits. So I wouldn't even try to get too unique at quarterback. I just say take your savings and then get unique elsewhere. These amazing plays that just everyone's not looking at.
So basically the only game that matters is the 49ers. And
it's a catalyst game. It is a key game.
It is a very, very key game. Even in redraft.
There's a reason why I texted you like at 9 this morning and said, "Are you sure you want that game?" Because I would personally like that game.
So I may or may not desperately want to watch Trey Lance too.
I have this Sam Darnold carrot for a recap if you really want.
There you go. Kyle, what are the props of the week for week 17?
I see your Sam Darnold carrot and say, what if you had to blurb 2 quarterbacks and one of them was Kyle Allen? How fun would that be, Pat? The 2 props I brought to the show, if you want to check out all 5, just go ahead and read the article. But the 2 props, Kyler Murray over 30.5 rushing yards. I think you can find it at minus 121 as of yesterday. So since he's come back, it was weird. Early in the season, they weren't really using him as a rusher. He was just kind of lighting it up as a passer. I think since they started losing games, frankly, he's dropping back more. He's being forced to scramble more. And for this prop, that is a good thing. I'm not sure if it's really good for him in real life, but in his past 4 games, since returning from the ankle injury, 6.3 carries, 49 yards, and 3 of his 4 highest drop back games, just overall more volume for him, have come in the past 3 weeks. So looks like he's just getting more volume, leading to more ground game production from him. And this line, like if we saw this line last year, we'd be absolutely blown away by how low it is. The other one, Michael Carter over 65.5 rushing plus receiving. Tevin Coleman out this week. Ty Johnson healthy scratch last week. I assume he's active this week, but the fact that he was just healthy scratch tells me they don't plan on using him. Very clear he's not in the game plan. And we saw Michael Carter in that 3-down role, basically anytime he's played over 50% of the team snaps, he's averaged 16.4 touches per game. He topped this prop in 5 of 8 games in which he's played over half the team snaps. He's just an elite bell cow back. Now they don't have Tevin Coleman. His over seemed pretty enticing. This is just so low for a player who's like a really good bet to get to 20 touches.
Dago, what about Michael Carter in DFS vibes? People are going to be scared of him against the Bucks, but is he like a potential humongous X factor today in DFS?
I don't hate it. We just know like last week he got there. It wasn't the passing game usage. It was about going over 100 yards on the ground, and like he's not going to go over 100 yards against the Bucks. And so I'm pretty worried about his ceiling. Like in DFS, for instance. I wouldn't even take Braxton Berrios in anything larger than like 100 man because Berrios just doesn't have a ceiling with Zach Wilson. Like the Berrios targets are safe. If you're looking to pay down because there's no value underneath 5K, like Michael Gallup is the one that makes the most sense. Everyone's going to play Cortland Sutton, but remember, like the 29% target share Cortland Sutton had from Drew Lock didn't matter without Jerry Jeudy in 2019 because Drew Lock is so bad. And so, like, I know everyone sees the usage, but it didn't matter then. Why would it matter today? So I can't get there. I think Braxton Berrios, there's Zay Jones if you want reception floor.
Braxton Berrios is going to throw a touchdown, by the way. That's how the Jets roll these days.
I mean, he 101-yard kickoff last week. That's how he got there.
He has a rushing touchdown the week before that, too, I believe.
Oh, my God, it's happening. He's going to catch 3 passes and score 25 fantasy points.
That's how the Jets roll. Denny, Jacoby Myers, or Cole Kmet at the flex for Christopher. Cole Kmet, he's got like the slightly more conventional pocket passer today. Andy Dalton has tended to pepper Darnell Mooney and Cole Kmet with targets in his limited action this year. Or do you just go Jacoby Myers, who's basically the 5-catch, 50-yard metronome?
Right. Yes, that's a great way to describe Myers. I wrote up Cole Kmet in the targets to go to column. I do like him. I don't like him more than Myers. You're going Jacoby.
Kyle, we've talked a lot. You've talked a lot about Boston Scott on the show. Let's throw Melvin Gordon into that mix where the Broncos running game did not get home last week in a good matchup against the Raiders, like a really, really good matchup. Total flop. Now, Melvin Gordon, Javonte Williams were both on the injury report this week, but they're both active. It's another really, really positive matchup for a running back in the Chargers. Are we safely playing Melvin Gordon over Boston Scott today?
Yeah, Melvin Gordon injury thing, not an issue. It's hip thumb, which has been listed for him for, I think, at least a month. He's one of those players from we don't blurb this player anymore. He's fine. He doesn't practice on Wednesday or Thursday because he's been in the league for 6 years. He's fine. He's in a perfect matchup versus the Chargers. And although it's not good that the team is missing, I don't know, half of their passing attack, if not really more than half of it, it will incentivize them to run the football. When Drew Lock is throwing to coughing up, sick, stomach flu, whatever they're going to call it, Courtland Sutton as his only target with Judy and Tim Patrick out, I'd imagine we see them run just an incredible amount of times. And Gordon, to his credit, has been pretty efficient this year. Not Javonte Williams efficient, but no one has been. But he's also led the team in carries more often than not. So I will take Melvin Gordon here. I think he is much more likely to be his team's 1A. Boston Scott is his team's 1B. And although his offense is worse, they are very much incentivized to run the football this week.
I don't mean to confuse the situation any more than we need it to be, but apparently Jordan Howard Boston Scott's being used the RB1 in warmups right now. Kenneth Gainwell is number 2. Jordan Howard is not being used.
So I'd like to rewind the tape. Could I? This isn't live. Let's. I mean, if that is, I will. Let's go.
Boston. We could also say a lot of times these beat writer observations. I mean, Jordan Howard just might be like getting his ankle taped or something.
Could be.
So that would not be a great start.
But no, wasn't great. No, wouldn't be great. Daigle, a lot of X's needs 2.5 PPR between Amari Cooper, Antonio Brown, Brandon Cooks, and Michael Carter.
Apparently, it needs to find a date as well since he has a lot of X's. Amari Cooper, Antonio Brown, and I think those are the 2, right? Brandon Cooks, again, it comes down to Antonio Brown risk factor. Brandon Cooks is at least safer than Antonio Brown, in my opinion. Maybe it depends on how you weigh Antonio Brown's injury, but I'm going to go Cooper and Antonio Brown personally.
Cooper and Cooks are so close that I could accept any answer there. And Cooper makes sense to me. After last week, they want Amari happy heading into the playoffs. If you're going to go on the narrative street, so that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, I'm starting Amari everywhere.
Kyle, Tower of something on Twitch needs to sit one in PPR. He's got a lot of good running backs here. Who should he sit?
We are going to sit just one. Oh man, I don't want to sit. I'm not sitting Ronald Jones. I'm not sitting Sony Michel because at worst Jones is like a 2+ down back because he actually out-targeted Keyshawn Vaughn last week on an elite offense versus a atrocious Jets defense. Sony Michel, tough matchup, but a 3 down back on a really good offense. Nick Chubb and Dalvin Cook, undoubtedly the 2 most talented of these 4, play on the worst offenses of them. No Kareem Hunt, or actually he's questionable. I'm not sure he's going to play. I think we sit Dalvin Cook. Like this offense under Sean Mannion could score 9 points.
It's a little bold. I would maybe sit Sony Michel, but I mean, we asked you the question, and it's pretty good logic. I mean, this Vikings offense could go off the damn rails today. So who really knows? Tough situation. Kyle's a smart guy. I would listen to Kyle. Denny or no Daigle. I haven't heard you much on these 2 guys. 2 of the big guys this week. James Conner, who we're kind of assuming is out, but if he's active, the problem is you have to make this decision now. So Casey should probably just get Jared Patterson in there.
Everything it sounds like it's James Conner's not playing today. As we know, Peter Schrager is even like best friends with Kingsbury. He had it last week as well about any like LA news as well as Kingsbury news. And he even said that James Conner won't play today. So not expecting Conner to play today. Just plug in Patterson, even though we know Jonathan Williams will be the pass catching back.
Man, I'm really hoping that actually doesn't happen. I'm hoping that that's just fake news.
I mean, they both don't get enough touches anyways. Like we said, Washington's just trying to get out of the season right
They
now.
really, really. There's a lot of teams just trying to get out of the season, but Washington is at the front of the line. Denny, the ranks, they must be adjusted, even though it's a new year, even though it's week 17, even though we're all exhausted. Like people are just trying to survive the fantasy season to get out of the championship. But ranks must be adjusted, and we're going to find out what merited adjustment this week.
Hey everyone, this is Denny Carter from NBC Sports Edge, bringing you the Week 17 edition of Adjust the Ranks. Today we'll start with star Pittsburgh pass rusher TJ Watt, who is leading the charge of Steelers players logging off of social media this week in preparation for the team's big game against the hated Cleveland Browns this Sunday. Watt said he's, quote, not the biggest social media guy by design, as it can create more problems than benefits. That is incredibly and unfortunately true. Many Steelers followed suit after TJ Watt swore off social media in a social media post this week. The question becomes, where will the Steelers get their dopamine fix this week if they are not logged on for an entire week? Will they get their dopamine from face-to-face interactions, from exercise, from reading a book, from communing with nature? No, absolutely not. That's not the way it works in the 21st century. You get your dopamine from social media or you don't get it at all. We have to adjust down on what will surely be a dopamine-starved Steelers team in Week 17. Adjust your ranks. We continue today with Saints quarterback Ian Book, who, incredibly, last week against the Dolphins became the first person named Ian to ever start at quarterback in the NFL. Ian Book, in short, is a trailblazer in professional sports. We have to adjust up on this history-making third-string quarterback, despite what was not the best start against the Dolphins. But nevertheless, he made history, and Ian Book has opened the door for millions of folks named Ian, who until now had no chance to play quarterback in the National Football League. Adjust the ranks. Once again, this is Denny Carter with NBC Sports Edge, reminding you to adjust the ranks.
The amount of Ians in middle schools over the past 10 to 20 years are any indication, there's going to be some more Ians starting in NFL.
Absolutely.
It seems like every other child was named Ian for about 10 or 15 years. So,
by the way, it turns out that the viewers were not big fans of my shirt in that video, and they have let me know it over the past 72 hours. I just want to say, everybody, your feedback has been processed. Thank you for that.
And Dr. Ian Malcolm, by the way, in the extended Jurassic Park universe, part of his canon is that he started a few games for the Jets in the 70s. But that, of course, is not real life. So, Denny, do we have kickers of the week? You still doing this even though it's week 17?
What does that mean? Yeah.
Denny, it's pretty pathetic, but go do your bit. Go ahead, go on. Out.
What bit? No, it's we're playing Robbie Gould today. Should be pretty good game script there for the Niners. Jake Elliott profiles as a good waiver wire pickup. He's only rostered in 20% of leagues. Dustin Hopkins, who we had last week, and I believe he scored double-digit points against Denver, against a COVID-ravaged Denver team. We are playing him once again. Also, people worried about Tyler Bass because it's cold in Buffalo. Well, we don't worry so much about cold. We worry about wind. And the wind looks to be about 7 to 10 miles an hour in Buffalo right now. Don't fret about Tyler Bass. It's an insanely good spot for him. Go ahead and play him.
Go ahead, get Tyler Bass into those championship winning lineups, says Denny Carter. The lawyers, they've been summoned back to the office, just for the record. Daigle, slots guy, Alvin Kamara, a name we don't quite know how much trust to place in. Or DeAndre Swift, which I was getting lots of hesitance from viewers this week, but the Lions have said they want to cut him loose, quote unquote. They want to send him into the offseason on a high note. But do we put enough stock in that to play him over Alvin Kamara this week?
Nah, especially without Markinger. You just play Kamara. Don't even think about it.
Real quick, where do you view though DeAndre Swift? I mean, I think he's like safely top 20 still. He was about RB 12 or 13 before he went down. I guess we're not going all the way back there, but do you think he's safely top 20 or no?
I think safely top 20. You would still have to hope for the reception floor. It's weird. Like they said they are not going to limit him today. And he was full practice all week long, not on the injury report. So that could be true. But then they also said he's not going to play in week 18. So like you would think that means that they give him everything today as like the parting gift of the year. And then they just rest him for his future. I don't quite understand, but I would expect his full helping of touches in whatever game script we can assume for that game. It is, again, the weather's really bad. So
it does make very, very little sense as a plan. And what would make little sense is asking anyone other than Denny this question. It says desperation question for Denny in PPR. The Texans is Brevin Jordan, or the Chargers is like third or fourth tight end, Steven Anderson.
I appreciate you coming to me for the sicko tight end play. It's Anderson. I mean, Anderson looks kind of good to me. When Jared Cook is out, obviously Parham is still dealing with the aftermath of his concussion. So Anderson should get a lot of snaps, should run a lot of routes in a game where I think that the Chargers will, actually put forth effort in this game, unlike last week. So go with Anderson.
Boy, that was a brutal watch in week 16 from I almost said San Diego Chargers. It was a very San Diego Chargers performance. Oh, yeah. Kyle Robbie on YouTube, Michael Gallup, who got finally surpassed by Amari Cooper last week, or everyone's favorite this week, Gabriel Davis. But we just don't quite know what to expect since Isaiah McKenzie was so good last week. A lot of moving parts for the Bills at wide receiver. Who should Robbie be playing?
Yeah, to me, I don't think McKenzie figures in too much. I took his presence as more of the he was taking that Cole Beasley type of underneath role. I think Gabe Davis is the traditional outside receiver. I think I will still go Michael Gallup. I am more confident in Gallup, who, since Amari Cooper got ramped up to his full snaps after coming off COVID list, still leads the team in air yards. They have a traditional guy who has the lowest targets, gets the most air yards because he has a deep ADOT, gives him an incredible ceiling. Gabe Davis is not a bad play. I am just more confident that Michael Gallup is competitive with his teammates in terms of receiving yards, receptions, targets than Gabe Davis, who probably has to compete with maybe the best among them in Stephon Diggs.
It's just that's been a tough one all week for me.
They're very similar players, similar situations. I don't think there's a wrong answer. I will take Gallup.
Yeah, it was just a tough one to get to the bottom. I think you did about as good a job as you could possibly do there with that one. Daigle Theo, Tyler Boyd, who's been getting more involved lately. He's even scored some long touchdowns lately. Or Brandon Ayuk with just the uncertainty of how much his quarterback will actually pass.
Ayuk has a higher ceiling. I would probably play Boyd, had the higher floor. Most likely better game environment that has the potential to shoot out, not like the 49ers Texans. So I would probably just play Boyd. Not sexy, but I think it's the best option.
I think that makes sense. I want to say Ayuk, but I think that makes a lot of sense. Here's another Denny, KJ Osborne we might have been excited about with Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins not in today. Is he usable, say, as a top 40 wide receiver?
Oh man, that's tough. That's a tough ask. I mean, we're talking about, not playing Justin Jefferson in favor of some RB2s. We're talking about benching Dalvin Cook if you're loaded at running back. So it's hard for me to sit here and say, yeah, no, KJ Osborne has some legitimate potential here. No, I think that you just play anybody. I mean, I'd play Braxton Berrios over him pretty easily, just for example.
I would play Berrios over him, but I will say with Osborne, if you're in a truly desperate situation, you have no good pivots, I do think you can regard him as a top 48 wide receiver in PPR, aka a wide receiver 4. But that's kind of, not much praise. But I do think you can regard him as top 48.
His mom is very happy. Top 48, hang the banner.
I would play Devin Duvernay over Osborne.
Oh man,
that doesn't sound like top 48 to me.
Real quick. Yeah,
Duvernay's sneaky.
We're gonna need. Hold on, Siri. We're gonna need to conference in a couple more lawyers. Actually, so Siri, find me lawyers. Kyle, Sam, Devin Singletary is a name we've not mentioned yet today, but getting a lot of steam. He's played at least 68% of the snaps 3 straight weeks. Devin Singletary or returning Elijah Mitchell.
I think I still roll with returning Elijah Mitchell. Was just completely dominant. Like these two players are both undoubtedly their team's RB1s. The only doubt would be Mitchell's health, but all signs point to him playing at least the RB1, the 1A style role. I think Elijah Mitchell's more talented, and he also gets the obvious, just awesome matchup versus Houston. So I would roll with Elijah Mitchell here.
Daigle, we can't give every tight end question to Denny, and Darren Waller remains out for the Raiders. Foster Moreau's finally, after probably costing a few people their seasons with a couple of the devastating donuts, he's gotten back in like the 4-catch, 50-yard range. So Foster Moreau or Gerald Everett, who for some reason remains like Russell Wilson's like go-to target, like sad Russell Wilson really likes to target Gerald Everett.
They're both good options, honestly, relative to every other tight end in the league. But I like Gerald Everett today. I think I'll stick there. Just take the reception floor. Denny's the tight end wizard. So
I would go Everett, but Moreau has the ultimate good tight end matchup here against a Colts team giving up the most tight end yardage, the most tight end receptions, the highest tight end target share. So it's a good spot for him, but I do think that Everett is probably safer.
Man, yeah, it's just both those guys. It's just like it's a tough scene, but yeah, this tight end is just like that. Like you're gonna have to play guys with huge question marks at tight end. And Kyle, huge question marks for Mike Williams, who consistency has not existed. He's back off the COVID list. The targets just seem like they keep creeping downward. But is he volatile enough where you would start Gabriel Davis over him?
I think I would start Gabe Davis over him. I just don't see this this Chargers game being even modestly competitive. And the one team I'm never concerned with that, because I don't like they pass when they're up, they pass when they're down, it doesn't matter, is Buffalo. Whereas I do think the Chargers would be more likely to just take to the ground, play an ugly game, and beat Denver, who isn't going to put up any points. I think that game environment is less exciting just because every Bills game environment is exciting. They just don't care about running the football, which is awesome. So I will take Gabe Davis.
Daigle, we got Kyle's thoughts on Devin Singletary, but Press specifically wants your thoughts on Devin Singletary versus Rashad Penny. They're really jumbled up in the rankings. How do you differentiate these two?
Yeah, I'll go Devin Singletary. This is the Zach Moss Singletary backfield. It's exactly what we saw last week. And we know that Devin Singletary, just in handling, 50 of 58 backfield touches the past 3 games, is their workhorse. The highest team total on the board out of any offense this week. And so I'm just going to try to get exposure in the touchdowns in that offense, however I can. Denny,
we got to go back to you on the tight ends now, because I believe you wrote up Tyler Higbee this week, who has a smash spot or touchdown Pat Freiermuth, Ben Roethlisberger trying to have a 500-yard game in his final home start. Who should Hawkeye be starting at tight end?
I mean, I think it's pretty easily Higbee. And I know, look, Higbee is the king of empty tight end routes, and I get that. And I take no pleasure in writing him up in the target coder column, but I'm not working with much. And he has a supremely good matchup against Baltimore. You're going Higbee here.
Yeah, that's going to be it for the questions today. It's not it for the show. We're at the end of a long season. We also want to take a moment to say thank you to the viewers for coming. I'm going to let everyone go around and say a parting piece, but it's just been incredible how many of you join every week. Not just every week, but every show every week. I've gotten to feel like I know a lot of you. It's kind of funny. You made me laugh a lot this year too. And just a really, really good gang. Again, for all of our different variety of shows, joining the pods, joining our live Sunday show, joining our solo Q&As, and just really, really, really appreciate it. We had our best season ever this year. And just you guys ask intelligent questions. You got very hard questions, we're the experts, but a lot of times I get a question. I'm like, ugh, goodness, this person seems smarter than me and I have no idea what to tell them. And we just appreciate you so much. And this could go around the horn and have everyone say kind of their end of season piece. Beginning with Mr. John Daigle, who wins the alphabetical order, except he doesn't. Denny Carter does, but we're beginning with John Daigle.
I didn't know we were giving Oscar speeches, so I will make.
We're not giving. I gave the Oscar speech, so no Oscar speech. I just started.
Oh, it's been a tough season. It's been a tough year for everyone. Playing, writing, content creation, listening, recording, just whatever you do in this space. It's been a really, really long and tough year. And so I would hope that if you are in this show, that means that we have helped you at least a little bit, because that means you have come back for that reason. So hopefully this is one last week. Remember, we're nearly there, and good luck today.
Denny, do you have anything? You might need these people as part of your legal defense strategy. The people love me. The viewers love me.
Right. Yes, I will need you to come to my defense, everybody who's in the chat. But no, seriously, these are weekly, just great questions. It really, truly makes me think about which players I'm prioritizing, which players have the edge on guys who are close. It also this has become a space where we realize how important the waiver wire is, how useless our drafts are sometimes. Today you're probably happily starting Rashad Penny over DK Metcalf, and that's something that we get to discuss and kind of rationalize here. So thank you everybody for joining us.
Mr. Kyle, Mr. Zoomer, any parting thoughts on the 2021 season? I had to think of what year it was. It's 2022, but it's 2021 season.
Yeah, this was my first year with NBC Sports full time. I was like blurbing last year and stuff, but it was an awesome year because one, it's made possible. The fact that I can have a job doing this is made possible by all the people in chat. If you aren't here, I don't know, no one's watching this back, but if you're not here, I don't care. Thank you for supporting, for watching all of our, the Q&As every single week. People are so many people are done. You can't, not that I get we get good content. Not that many people can make the playoffs. Not that many people can make the championship, and still every single week, awesome questions. The telltale sign of an awesome question is if you don't know who you have ranked higher. I know they're 15 and 17, and I don't know which one is which. And I got those all the time. Awesome, funny people in our chat, people every single week. Like you said, I recognize your name, recognize you've been here every single week. I couldn't do this without you because you literally support the industry by just being here, being around. So it's been a long but appreciative year from me. So I appreciate it. Thanks for everything, guys. It's been an awesome year.
Yeah, Kyle, you knocked it out of the park your first year, and I like to joke around, but you guys all knocked it out of the park. Just helping supply amazing content all season. And I'll end the show with Eric Limberg, who's an every week viewer, reminding us we should thank Applebee's for sponsoring our show every week. That was a huge help to us, and we love Applebee's sponsoring a good football show. Fantasy Kickoff served by Applebee's. And for Applebee's, for Daigle, for Kyle, for Denny, I am Pat. Thank you so much for joining this season. Good luck in week 17. We will catch you, this week still. But that's it for this show for this year. Thank you so much.